I find it really valuable when the whole team understands the
Yeah.
risk for the company. That's the part that really excites me is what I'm going to learn from them. Once a company is really comfortable with their level of risk, they can be a lot more aggressive with their business plan. Sometimes the solution is not insurance. Sometimes it's something else. When these things happen, I'm going to be the one sitting in there with them, helping them through it. I love the energy of these people that are curious about everything to perform my function really well. I have to be like that.
Hello and welcome to the Success Differently podcast. My name is Michelle Sorgaroli. I am your host today. We're being joined by Grant Alsop. Now, Grant is the VP of Risk Management and Commercial Lines with Axis Insurance. He has a focus on construction and real estate sectors. The big thing about Grant is he helps clients understand and mitigate risk. He really wants to help them navigate their unique challenges. And what I'm understanding is it's really about positioning for growth, contributing to long-term success and their stability, hence the risk management side. On a personal side, what makes it more interesting is as a young man, Grant had dreams of becoming a quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. He is a fan of Leonardo da Vinci, which I want to ask you about, Grant. He apparently makes a great paella. And in his spare time with his wife and his three kids, he likes to be golfing, skiing, biking, and taking advantage of the beautiful beaches in British Columbia. So, Grant, welcome to our podcast. I cannot wait to get into this conversation with you.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, it was, we were just talking about it before that how great it was to catch up a few months ago and actually sit down for an hour, hour
Yeah,
and a half, and we covered a lot of
yeah, we
material.
did. We covered a lot of
Everything
ground. It
from
was
business to kids to
mhm.
everything. So,
Family life and the whole bit,
yeah.
exactly. So, something that, yeah, that's something that has struck out for me. There was a common thread through so much of who you are and how I've come to know you, and it's just been a delight getting to know you better. Um, I can see that risk management has been a thing for you from particularly of properties. I understand that your first job was in shoveling snow and cutting grass when you were a little boy. So even at that time, you were in property,
Yeah,
property care and
yeah,
risk management. So a little bit about what is it? Long-term stability, that's
yeah.
language that you use, and mitigating risks, language that you use. So obviously you're in the right place. What is it about risk management that's so important to you, Grant?
Well, maybe I'll go back. I mean, I guess part of it's in my genes. I mean, I don't know
Mm.
if I got into this before, but my grandfather was in the insurance business.
Ah,
My dad was in the insurance business. He had a large brokerage in Winnipeg.
okay. Oh,
So I
interesting.
started my life out in Winnipeg, and I'm actually thanks for I'm surprised you dug up some of that stuff about wanting to be a quarterback for the 49ers.
Yeah,
I had forgotten about all that, but
there you
that
go.
leads. This is where I started into shoveling snow, I guess, as a kid and mowing lawns, as growing up in that environment. But yeah, I come from a long background of it, and I think
Hmm.
as a kid,
Mm.
listening to my father, you're listening to him talk about his day growing up, and so a lot of that was inherited, and
What?
and that's sorry.
No, go ahead.
That's really why that's how I got into the business.
Hmm.
I was in university. I went to University of Manitoba. I went through for a Bachelor of Arts in economics, but I was just really anxious to work for most of that time,
Hmm.
and obviously looked first and foremost to my father's company. He had a company in Winnipeg,
Hmm.
um, and what I did decide to do is I didn't really want to train with him.
Hmm.
I wanted to
Mm.
train somewhere else and found the opportunity in Vancouver,
Hmm.
which is fantastic. I mean, I
Welcome
always
to
loved
Vancouver.
Vancouver and never imagined I'd be
Yeah.
living out in Vancouver and married to a Mexican and spending,
Uh,
time here and Mexico as opposed to Winnipeg. But so yeah, I came out here and I just love Vancouver. I mean, I fortunately made a lot of friends right away and had to make that decision to I wanted to make my life out here.
hmm. Hmm.
So that's how I got into the business. And I think what came naturally to me and why it's a great fit is I've always been loved great conversations. I mean, I think even as a kid, and
Mm.
it really plays into that part of my personality that I love. I mean, and I kind of take that to everybody I meet.
Can
Um,
I pause you there for a quick sec?
yeah.
What is a great conversation for you?
A great conversation is a good point. I mean, obviously both sides taken fully part.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, there's just some people where you cover everything. Like when you and I got together, I mean, that's a great example. I mean,
mhm,
we're comfortable enough to talk about everything going on,
mhm,
and our careers and
mm,
things that agitate, maybe things don't, what makes you feel great after a meeting.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think a part of a great conversation covers a lot of territory for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. You highlighted a couple of things there. The first one is there's a level of comfort in that
Yeah,
conversation. So a strong sense of rapport, if you will, that connection of some level. But the other interesting piece that you said is that the feeling after the meeting,
yeah,
right? The feeling after the conversation and how you feel after the conversation. That's a good litmus test, isn't it,
yeah,
for a great conversation?
yeah. And it's,
Mm.
obviously a great conversation for me too is where I've learned. I mean,
Ah,
a lot of my learning comes from conversations. I mean, I read and do quite a bit of that, but I really take a lot in my in conversations. And you know
mhm.
what, with what I do, Michelle, it's really, really important that
Yeah.
clients or groups I'm talking to really understand.
Mhm.
Um, so that's why I say it plays really well into that because it's a very technical issues that I'm dealing with when I'm having meetings and conversations, and I have to turn that into um, like a way of doing it where everybody understands. That's really the most important thing to me is that I leave the meeting and they really get it and understand, and whatever
Mhm.
platform that is. Uh, especially things we're dealing with and changes in the industry, it's just so important.
Yeah, it's complex. Your industry is complex. And
Yeah,
it's I think it's interesting because the importance of understanding, especially in managing risk and dealing with, instability, if you
yeah,
will, that I'm wondering what makes their understanding, other than doing your job well and being a
yeah.
professional, expert, what is so important to you about making sure that your clients understand? What is it that is on the other side of that,
Yeah,
Grant?
and it's and the scenario I love. I mean, I really feel like a success too when I can go into a company that I'm just starting to work with
Mm-hmm.
and they're inviting me into their boardroom with the team.
Mm,
That's really what I want to get into. And sometimes that's a very new thing to them dealing with commercial insurance and risk
yeah.
management is getting everybody interested to come in and have a discussion about that. But that's really where I can get down to detail. I find it really valuable when the whole team understands
Oh, interesting.
the
Yeah.
risk for the company and
Mm-hmm.
really the only way to do that a lot is to get them talking. And again, since I love doing a lot of this through conversation, I learn a lot that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's really valuable to me. And it even gets up to the point with most of my clients where that team starts to call me and call
Mm-hmm.
me on their own and say, hey, listen, my division is starting to look at this, or we're
Mm-hmm.
looking to purchase this equipment, or we're looking to take on this contract. Is there anything we should be worried about here with the risk and insurance?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's to me where I've gotten up to the level
Yeah, it's
I want to
beautiful.
be at.
Yeah,
That tells me
absolutely.
they're understanding.
Right. Yeah, I'm loving this. This is so interesting. When you are when you're going into that meeting and you enter the boardroom and you haven't been there before, it's your
Yeah,
very first time, and you're obviously excited because you're in the boardroom with all the team.
yeah.
Um, what are you most excited about? Like what is lighting you up?
Honestly, it's making the connections, meeting new people. I mean, I that's how I carry out my day, right? I mean, I
Uh,
walk around and whether it's going in to get a coffee or it's going into
yeah.
lunch, wherever I'm going, I love to make some connection and conversation, and that's the part that really excites me is what I'm going to learn from them,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm going to learn about their team, and excited about the challenge to get up to that level where they actually want me to come back and they want
Mm-hmm.
to invite more people into the boardroom.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I mean, I've got to entertain Michelle. I gotta.
Well, there's
Figure out how that is.
you're driven to learn. You're driven to,
Yeah.
this probably has something to do with your fan of Leonardo da Vinci, which I'm curious about. I can come back to that for in a
Okay.
minute, but I am curious about that. Um, the learning piece is so important, and I think, you've said you want to empower people to make really informed decisions.
Yeah.
What is what is it that you see when clients are, or even in your personal life,
Yeah.
when people are equipped to make those confident decisions, particularly around risk management?
Yeah.
Why is that so important to you? What does that do for you in a
Well,
meaningful
it's
way?
it's it's important to me because it's important to them. It's really important to them. And my industry, it's very competitive.
Hmm.
And sometimes I'm walking into a situation where their experience with insurance is phoning two or three or four brokers and saying, "Hey, give me your lowest price.
Right.
I'm going to give you very basic details. Uh,
Mm.
you give me your lowest price and send it over." Almost to that point where it's like send it over. And obviously,
Hmm.
I won't do that, but situations where I've been able to take them from that into having active conversations and again, inviting me into the team meetings. Sometimes I've even been invited to their morning sales meetings or
Hmm.
wherever it might be. And that to me is where I want to get to. And the reason it's important um, is because my industry is really changing a lot too.
Hmm.
You know, we're dealing with unbelievable catastrophic weather events now,
Yeah.
and it's costing the industry billions more each
Hmm.
year. And
Hmm.
that's one of the things I'm really concentrating on now.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
it's it's I think one of the big changes that's starting to come, and it's going to be a challenge in the future. So it's even more important now that we go through all of the options. They really understand the way each option works. They really understand, but it's really a deep understanding of what their risk is and what they're willing to, amount of risk they're willing to tolerate.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's to your point, it's new territory in the insurance industry. This,
Yeah,
how they're being structured, which not, whatnot, which is what I understand, based on environmental changes. Um, when they do understand, I want to pull back on this
yeah.
this thread of risk. Obviously, you grew up with risk management at home as a young boy. It was in your home, those conversations and whatnot. What do you think impacted your orientation towards risk management specifically, beyond just the professional exposure to your dad and your grandfather?
Yeah, and I think it's something that grows over time. I mean, obviously from the time I started in the industry to now, I mean, I've lived through a lot of situations where clients have had horrible events and they're calling me and I'm right there in the middle of it, uh,
Hmm.
dealing with the insurance, getting them their funds and working through the whole thing, whether it's a rebuild, potential lawsuit,
Yeah.
whatever that means. So over time in my industry, I mean, I've been doing this for over 30 years, I think. Um, you start to gain an even bigger appreciation for it. And I've lived through many of these situations.
Hmm.
Um, to put it in a more relative terms right now, I mean, was it back in January? So that's 2 or 3 months ago, we had this huge incident in Los Angeles where fires got out of
Yeah.
control.
Yeah.
And it was a hot topic. Like I was getting calls from, it was a hot topic for about 2 days. And I
Mhm.
was even getting calls from radio stations here in Vancouver asking me, hey,
Right.
what do you make of this situation
Hmm.
in Los Angeles? Can it happen here? And which definitely
Mm.
scenarios like that could happen. But after a couple of days, once the fires are out, everybody forgets about it. But those are
That's in,
things I learned from, right? Because
mm,
I talking about risk. I mean, I can see it happening here. I mean, matter of fact, I mean, I almost say I know it's going to happen, whether it's in the form of a flood, fire, earthquake is a huge one here.
hmm.
Um, so yeah, I'm dealing in that world and constantly looking for the best options for everyone.
Hmm. It sounds like ultimately it's about creating stability. Is that what I'm hearing from
Yeah,
you?
and it that's a good point. I mean, it really, once a company's really comfortable with their level of risk, they can be a lot more aggressive with their business plan.
Okay, that's
So
interesting language.
I've
Because
definitely
risk and aggression, you don't typically hear in the same
no, but
sentence.
it does give a
So,
company a lot more confidence when you've got a lot
yeah,
of these potential situations which could bring the company down or affect your growth. It gives you a lot of confidence to move forward.
yeah, yeah. Do you have an example of that where you've seen that either in your own personal life, where there's been, you got stabilized and that gave you the ability to take a flying leap forward, or even with a client?
Yeah, actually, that's a good way to think about it. I've never thought about that, but obviously coming out to Vancouver, 23 years old was a risk. The way I travel is taking on quite a bit of risk, and so let me I've got a pretty good example actually. Uh, I've mentioned Mexico, a lot of our travel. I mean, I travel a lot of different places, but Mexico's one I get a really unique
Hmm.
um, way of seeing, right? Because I'm there with my family and my friends,
Mm.
and like a Mexican when I'm there, and there's a lot. They have a very high level of risk, let's say, tolerance.
Hmm.
So one of the
What,
things my wife
yeah,
and I did is we went on a hot air balloon ride over the pyramids in Mexico City.
amazing. Hmm.
When she mentioned it to me, um, I went and did a ton of research, obviously, and that's a bit
Uh-huh.
beyond my comfort zone. Um, but I,
That's
I
awesome.
researched all of it, and I could see that okay, well, the president of Mexico has been up on this ride. This is their track record. You go through all of it, and it was pretty crazy. Like we got up, and you got to remember, Mexico City is a city, like it's 28 million
It's
people.
huge.
So
Yeah.
these pyramids are sort of right in the middle of the city now.
Wow.
And when you go, I don't know if you have you been hot air ballooning?
No, no, not yet.
There's no planned landing. You can't plan exactly where you're going to land.
Oh, good heavens.
And
Interesting.
you're in a city. So we started the ride going through like you're basically almost hitting the roofs of the houses trying to find the wind to go up and the right wind. And the pilot looked like he was about 15. And once you hit that right combination of wind, you shoot up like a rocket
Wow.
up through the clouds. It was beautiful. And it was amazing. And then coming back down for a landing, and
Yeah.
I'm probably making people think I've got
No,
a,
no, this is
lead a
good.
really risky life here, but coming down for the landing, we landed on a street, and there's
Yeah.
basically a truck with a bunch of guys in the back following, trying to
Oh my
speed up and
gosh.
keep
Oh
up
my
with the
gosh.
the basket or
Yeah.
whatever you're in. And anyway, yeah, we landed in the middle of the street. Cars are going around us, and but so it's funny actually, being I'm in the risk management business, but I might be an example of calculated risk.
Exactly. Actually, that's what I wanted to highlight. The
Yeah.
idea to go in a hot air balloon, some people would say, sure, let's do it.
Yeah.
But Grant, what he did was research it first and assess the
Yeah.
risk, right?
Yeah.
So you
I don't
look,
know if I did it completely. I don't know if I envisioned parts of that, but
but
uh,
you can't get it all right. And, but that speaks to the informed decisions that you're always talking about. And
yeah.
actually, what was interesting here is the idea happened, let's go in a hot air balloon. You researched it, assessed the risk, made the decision to pursue that. And that was to give access. What I'm hearing is access to a new experience, which in business terms is
Yeah.
growth.
Yeah.
Right?
An unbelievable experience
Right.
that many get to have. Um, so a lot of circumstances like that, and you could take that into a like a business situation, like I said, where once you've got the team comfortable
Yeah.
with the risk in the future, there's an endeavor they want to take. There's um, you know, when they want to open up a location in Europe or they want to
Hmm.
get onto a new venture and they're assessing, look, what's our way out? Like, what if this happens? What if, um, you know, we're gonna take on a new building and build a building? What happens if that goes down? Where can we run our product?
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of, like I say, when the situation's ideal, you're getting into all these scenarios and working our way
Mhm.
around it, then as a company you can be quite aggressive.
It's interesting, yeah, using that, there's that word again, aggressive. So you're speaking about really access to growth,
Yeah.
ultimately.
Yeah.
Your eyes, I saw your eyes light up a little bit when you were talking about possibilities for companies. And the big thing here is, I think we often see in the risk world that risk is seen, particularly by consumers, risk doesn't feel risky until we're already in it.
Yeah.
So the investment in risk mitigation or risk management, if you will, tends to be one of, in my experience anyway, I'd love you to weigh in on this, tends to be one of resistance.
Yeah.
Right? It's seen as a cost. It's not necessarily, it's not you're not always the best in the one everybody wants at the table, right?
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And those are the scenarios I'm talking about more where I've come in and it's been a very transactional
Hmm.
type of process. So I guess there's a bit of talent in it to come in and make it into something that's interesting
Well,
and
yeah.
not too overwhelming. Like there's maybe a tendency in my industry to make things a little too technical.
Well, they
So
probably,
it is actually, a talent that you develop over time to make it into something that's interesting and something that they're going to become engaged in.
yeah, and I think, what you have spoken to several times here is this idea that if they understand their risks and they mitigate those risks, they are then empowered because they know that the foundation is strong. And
Yeah.
so, what and I can see that you're lighting up about giving access or creating access for clients to something bigger if they want to expand or move into new territories or, invest in their business somehow. You're giving them that confidence to be able to
Yeah.
do that,
Yeah.
um, which I think is
Actually,
also.
I really like that question you asked about personal life because it does come into personal life a lot. It's something I don't really think about, but there's a lot of times you see somebody you can tell they want to do something
Mhm.
and they've worked up in their mind something horrible that's going to blow up. And once you
Yeah,
start to run by those worst case scenarios, people go, you know what, maybe it's not so bad. Or
yeah,
maybe I can handle that.
exactly.
And you
So
take that. Just go ahead.
yeah, go come back to your flying leap, moving to Vancouver.
Yeah.
What was the risk analysis there? What was the foundation that supported you to make that confident decision?
I, you know what? I've always had a sense of adventure. I've always had a huge interest in travel, seeing the world, experiencing the world. We'd had some family trips out to Vancouver when I was growing up.
Okay.
Always loved it. And it's one of those situations I could see the opportunity. I definitely wanted the opportunity to live it. And at that age, let me say I was 22, 23, just coming out of university and probably one of the first of my friends to take a leap like that.
Hmm.
So yeah, I went through it. I mean, obviously I'm leaving home the first time. I'm leaving my friends. Didn't know anybody really in Vancouver. And it turned into just a fantastic experience. Like I still talk to my kids about it, my wife
Hmm.
about the excitement of the first 6 months being here. And I mean, Vancouver's incredible.
Hmm. Fun city. Um,
And
yeah,
I don't
it's
want to badmouth Winnipeg.
no, Winnipeg's great.
I mean, sometimes I get, but I did have enough of the -40, -70
That
with
can
wind
be
chill.
hard. Yeah, you've got to
Um,
really love that kind of temperature to be
yeah,
there.
yeah,
But nonetheless, so you were taking a risk. There was I just find this whole in risk management, I'm always curious about this part because fundamentally everybody wants to grow.
yeah,
Fundamentally, people want to do things, they want to have a life of meaning and adventure in
yeah,
one form or another, for however that looks for each of us as individual. But nonetheless, most of us want that in some form or another. And where risk is coming in for you is very interesting because some people will look at risk mitigation and it's about staying safe. So it's more about a pulling back and staying safe in the
yeah,
risk and creating that um, oasis or something like that. What
yeah,
I'm hearing from you, interestingly, is risk mitigation represents access to adventure and growth.
yeah.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense? Is
yeah,
that
and
is that what I'm
I
hearing
think
for you?
every company you go into, they've all got growth plans, and funny enough, sometimes when we're having the conversation about risk management, the discussion starts around the table about a venture they want to get into,
Right.
and it sparks the conversation. But um, I'll give you another good example
Great.
of where I got a little bit excited about an opportunity. Like I think I mentioned to you that I had an article come out in the
Yeah,
Vancouver
you
Sun.
did.
Um, obviously, I think everybody knows here in Vancouver in the Lower Mainland, we've got an earthquake risk.
Hmm.
And what's interesting about that is I think one of the biggest risks we have is that we don't know, we haven't had them. And we had some last few months that were enough to
Yeah,
make people,
I
oh
was
my
here in
God.
this space, and I actually thought I'm in a home office, and I actually thought a truck hit the house.
Yeah.
I literally I jumped up and I was like, oh my gosh, what happened in the laneway that someone hit our
Yeah.
house, right?
So you know what's funny about that, Michelle? When I talk about earthquake, it's a big part of what I talk about when I'm talking about risk management. But I don't have experience feeling them. And the second one that hit at like 5 a.m.,
Hmm.
my wife from Mexico knew like right
Right
away.
away.
Like we both woke up. She said, I said, oh my God, there's a truck going by or something. And she said, no, earthquake. And I
Oh.
pulled out my phone and I could see there's an earthquake. So there's risk in that. Like, so if I look at my wife or Mexicans, they experience a lot of earthquakes. If
Hmm.
you talk to somebody in Japan,
Hmm.
um, other areas where they experience them, frequently California, people know what to do.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that actually mitigates a lot of risk. Look, a big part here is we don't know, most people don't know what to do, and
Yeah.
it's hard to envision.
Right. New
So
experiences, right, are
a
hard to
lot
prepare
of
for.
when I'm talking about risk management or I'm talking about mitigating risk, a lot of it is storytelling.
Hmm.
And I find that really effective and using examples. I mean, when I go back to, I've made a lot of contacts in around the world through another organization I can tell you about, but contacts back in New Zealand and people in the insurance industry and outside of it who worked
Right.
through that big earthquake in Christchurch.
Right.
So I can
Yeah.
come back and I can, one of the things I'm really wanting to do right now, big project, is taking my clients through what it actually looks like. So
Hmm.
they're all paying a lot of money for earthquake insurance.
Mm.
Um, but I want to make sure that they really understand what the settlement process looks like.
Nice.
Is maybe sometimes which is not something maybe I need to do, but I feel like to get to that final answer, that final level of comfort, I need to go through it. So I'm doing that a lot right now, where I'm um, trying to work through what the process is going to look like realistically,
Hmm.
and if that meets what they need. And then you can
Right.
start looking at other options. But I really like to take them through the um, process of what it's going to look like for them.
Yeah, I
How do,
think
how do
that's
they
such
how do they carry on after that? And
right.
some of it may not have anything to do with direct damage to property they have. It may
Mm.
be a supply chain business where they need a different type of
Yeah.
insurance
So
to,
interesting.
yeah,
You know what, I think a lot of people, particularly in the advisory side in any industry, undervalue the importance of sharing what a process might look like.
yeah,
It's a real trust builder
yeah,
because it gives, in your case, it gives people the ability to envision and make different decisions around what's important to them and what they've come to understand and how they need to prepare themselves and what might transpire. That's great for them. It creates that vision for you as their advisor, it guiding them through that visioning process of what the process might look like. It
yeah,
gives them a sense of trust in your capability,
yeah. And
right? And
I was really, it was a good opportunity I mean, I don't want to make it sound like it was a great thing what happened in Los Angeles, but it was an opportunity for me to learn.
mhm,
Because again, I mentioned to you I mean, we're faced with wildfires here. I
mhm,
mean, you look at last summer, Jasper was
mhm,
destroyed over a forest fire. These things
mhm,
can happen here.
mhm.
Um, I was really interested to learn how things progressed in Los Angeles as far as expectations. And,
Yeah.
digging into it, I could see you could see this huge insurance problem coming up. Now
Mhm.
that you look back, right? Like a lot of people dropped their insurance coverage because it got too expensive. Big issue was a lot of insurance companies pulled out of the market
Yeah.
because of the huge fire risk
Of
there.
course.
So at the end of the day, you're left. I'm seeing figures like a quarter of the homes didn't have insurance coverage.
Good heavens.
And then there was just so many questions after the fact saying, look, like, am I going to get a check tomorrow?
Right.
Like, how long is
Kind of.
this going to take? And they weren't prepared for the process that, look, insurance companies have to come in and assess the damage. Their responsibility is to get it back into the same shape it was before the loss,
Mm-hmm.
so that sometimes it'll be repair, sometimes it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be replacement. Um, but there's a big length of time for them to come in and just assess everything. So I just want to have, and funny enough, through an international organization we belong to, I got myself invited into a meeting down in California with a bunch of insurance adjusters working through this. And I think it was going around the table and they're like, well, what are you doing here from Canada?
Learning.
But it was actually really interesting for me to hear with what they're dealing with, what the clients were thinking, what they were going through.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really helps me to deal with these potential issues because you're quite certain they're going to come up.
Oh, for sure. This learning theme keeps coming back, and your it's so valuable for people to know that you are an active and avid learner.
Yeah.
Because you're not, it's not just in your industry, as in many, there are probably continuing education credits that you need to fulfill. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have those. So the
Yeah.
ones that
Yeah.
how many people do those and they roll their eyes and go, "Oh my gosh, like help me, find me a course that I need to take so that I can fulfill my requirements, right, to keep my
Yeah.
license."
Yeah.
So there's forced learning, and
Yeah.
then there's volunteered learning, right?
Yeah.
In your case, the kind of learning that you seek, it's always coming back to, interestingly, what I'm hearing is always coming back to, how can I be better prepared?
Yeah.
How can I be more ready or understand the risks that could come so that I can mitigate those as much as possible,
Yeah.
so that I can be aggressive about my growth and my future adventures.
Yeah, and I also know that I'm going to be the one, when these things happen, Michelle, I'm going to be the one sitting in there with them, helping them through it. So I want to
Exactly.
make sure that we've got all the bases covered if we
Yeah.
get to that point.
Well, it's just such an important part of it, and I'm loving that I'm hearing that the learning that you are genuinely interested in is about being an expert in your craft, if you will, so that you are able to give people that peace of mind and give them that ability to make those
Yeah.
decisions going forward. Love this conversation. Okay, so I want to pivot. I want to hear about Leonardo da Vinci. So tell me about Leonardo and why are you such a big fan?
Uh, you know what? I really, there's a type of person I come across in life that I just get infatuated with, and I love the energy of these people that are curious about everything. And I think I naturally have that. And
Mhm.
honestly, to do my job really well, to perform my function really well, I have to be like that. I can't just be interested in insurance, and I've got to go beyond and be really curious about everything. I find that helps me a lot. But so Leonardo da Vinci, I maybe came across it as a kid, and I started reading. I was just infatuated with. Do you know? Have you read up much on
I know a little,
Leonardo da
but I'm
Vinci? Have you
not even
been to
going to pretend I know
Milan?
as much as you do. So.
No, and I'm not a huge, but I just I actually just finished a really good biography on him with Isaacson. The
I've heard of that one. I have
yeah,
not read
he's
it, but
done
I
one
have heard
on
of it.
Einstein as well, and really good. But whether how much is fact or fiction, you don't know.
Mhm.
This is going back a long way, but the type of life, I mean, he was interested in everything. One of these guys that walks around with a notepad and takes notes. I'm not to that level yet, but walks around and takes notes
Mm,
on everything he sees. And this is where he becomes an artist, a doctor, um, a chef. And his paintings are so interesting because you can see like his interest in the um anatomy, interest in
yeah.
anatomy, and like he'd actually dissect birds and dissect people, like go into so he could paint so accurately, and this is why the paintings like the Mona Lisa are so interesting, and there's
Hmm.
so much talk about it, or is she following me? Is it actually him? Um, and and funny enough, I have people I know that are like that and live life like that. And it's just every time I pick up a book on him or read something, it's a reminder of living like that.
Yeah, I love that. The
This
sense
gets
of
into the paella and cooking and
well, this is, you're touching on something so important. As you know, I do differentiation. I work with client advisors just like yourself. I work with a bunch of people who are in commoditized industries, and I help differentiate their value proposition so that they
yeah,
can create more value. The thing that is so beautiful about this conversation is you're highlighting something I speak to all the time, which is as we learn our craft in our profession, we become what I've coined a technical expert. So you know your craft, you know how to put together an insurance policy in your case, you know the technicalities of the business to do well.
yeah,
When we really start to thrive and when we start to create expansive value that generates much more impact and greater client relationships, it's when we start to tap into, in your language, your curiosity
yeah.
and seeing, I'm sure that when you're making your paella, and I hear that when you take on these advanced cooking challenges, it can sometimes create lots of chaos at home,
Sure.
right? Because you like to cook and try new
Oh yeah.
things. And when you're
My
being
wife hates it.
creative,
I love it.
right? Exactly. It's all part of the art. So
Yeah,
when we're creative like that, and we're trying different things in different places, different experiences, whether it's an
yeah,
adventure in a hot air balloon or cooking a paella or whatever it is that we're doing, those filter back into our craft, our professional craft,
yeah.
in the creativity, right? So the more experiences we have that way, we can connect dots. Have you read the Da Vinci, the Medici Effect? Have you read that book?
Medici
The
effect?
Medici
No.
Effect. Oh, you might like it. But it
Okay.
speaks to where mastery happens. Mastery happens through creativity. So once you're
Yeah.
the technical expert and you know the rules, you kind of have to throw them all away
Yeah.
and then create value within the regulatory boundaries, of course, and ethics and morals. But we have to create value by bringing these other components of our life into our business
Yeah.
so that they can express through expansive value and relationships and different ways of doing things, new processes and frameworks and whatnot. So, as your learning is incredibly valuable, your curiosity is incredibly valuable to your clients and to those who have the
I
privilege of
think
working
so,
with you.
and it's yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, I've got 30 years experience with all the technical part of it. I mean, things that people sometimes get concerned about, the pricing. I mean, that's easy to do to shop insurance
Mhm.
products around. It's very obviously I have the technical part down to compare out coverages and go through all the details of deductibles and all that. But where I really do see the big value in engagement, getting that extra engagement so I can
Exactly.
really custom design something and something that's going to last. And sometimes, listen, sometimes the solution is not insurance. Sometimes it's something else that they might want to look into.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to say, okay, you know what? If our production facility goes down for whatever reason, maybe we can run it through this competitor. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's been a competitor. We can pay them to do it. But you've got them thinking about ways to get around it. And I can see them sometimes think, you know what? Wow, that they get a comfort. They don't like
Mhm.
talking about it maybe in the beginning, but it gives
Yeah.
you a comfort, and you're like, okay, well, let's take on this new venture. Let's
Right.
expand more than we thought
Yeah.
we before.
It's different access to growth, right? So coming back to that word aggressive growth, this is where when the risks are taken care of
Yeah,
and and narrative, the narrative or the vision of the company or your clients is understood, then you can be collaborative problem solvers, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
And I see the same thing with you. I think that's why I enjoyed our conversation. The other part of this is you and I are similar that you get access to so many people, so many different organizations, and
oh,
again, it's
interesting.
that learning part of it. And I could see that you get that from your
Yeah.
business as well. Like
Mhm.
so many examples and things you've seen and hearing everybody's story is so much to learn from that.
Well, the story, this is, as we thread the story and we look at, your history in an environment at home as a young person, as a little boy, your history being around risk mitigation and insurance means that the dialogue and the conversation at home had that filter on it to some
Yeah.
extent. And
Yeah.
yet at the same time, you're an adventurer, you love to travel, you love new experiences. And all of this is threading through your story,
Yeah.
right? And as we thread the story, what happens is as we connect dots and see those parts of our past coming into our current story, it actually empowers us with more clarity
Yeah.
and allows us to bring more of ourselves forward because we can see the consistencies and the credibility that runs through the story and the integrity that runs through the story and the character of who we've become as a result of our story. It really highlights a lot of that, which then we can amplify in terms of value.
Yeah.
And so as we see you as, starting out shoveling snow in Winnipeg and taking these adventures into your life, you're more and more creative with your craft as well, with your profession.
Yeah. And I really think it does go into like all areas of life. Like, and it's amazing, like just being inquisitive
Yeah.
and almost like Mr. Magoo. You walk into, the cartoon character from. You walk into situations by accident where you have this incredible experience just because you're inquisitive. I was really lucky last year. My wife and I got a private tour of the Vatican
Oh my
with a group.
gosh.
I was over in some meetings and I actually ended up walking around. There's another guy and he's another Leonardo da Vinci type of personality where this guy
Mm-hmm.
is he's actually from I was just talking to him last night. This is why I'm thinking of it. He's partner of mine in Colombia
Interesting.
and based in Bogota and this guy he's an artist, like he's a huge artist. He runs one of the biggest brokerages in Colombia. He's got I was talking to him one day and he's, oh, have you heard my songs on Spotify?
Love it.
He's just you talk to him about golf, he knows a ton about golf, but anyway, him and I ended up walking together
Mm-hmm.
and I guess because we're so inquisitive we ended up in the back. So the groups up front, we wanted to go in the back just to experience um, being in each room
Right.
alone, and just taking it in. And
Mm-hmm.
and at the end of it, somehow, like I don't. Have you been to the
I have not been there,
Vatican and
no.
Sistine Chapel? They're really, really strict about photos.
Mm.
When you get into the Sistine Chapel, there's guards. If anybody takes a photo, they're on you. You're not supposed to talk loud. Anyway, somehow he and I ended up in the Sistine Chapel alone, maybe for 10 minutes before somebody kicked us out. But it's where I say it's one of these things where you're
Yeah.
inquisitive and you just walk into these uh, incredible situations sometime.
Yeah, exactly. Well, curiosity gives access
Yeah.
to
So
so
anytime
much.
somebody tells me, look, you should go to church more, I bring out the photo and say, no, I'm good.
I'm covered.
I'll go to the Sistine Chapel. Like, do you have a photo like this?
Exactly. Got that covered. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So, as you think about what we have talked about today
Yeah.
and reflect on your own story and what you've been hearing, reflecting back to you, what has stood out for you from this conversation, Grant?
You know what, Michelle, I really liked your questions on maybe taking what I do into my personal life, thinking of examples in my personal life. Yeah, it's funny. It's one of these things where you go about your business and you don't put a lot of thought into how you got there, you know, why you're good at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was an interesting process to sit. I mean, I felt the same way last time we talked, where you ask a lot of good questions
Mm,
and thinking about things in a different way.
thank you. Yeah, no, I mean,
So
well, you
it's
know how much fun this is for me because I'm looking
yeah,
for the common threads. That's just, it's my
yeah,
joy
yeah.
to go through this. And so
You
I'm
know, you know what
thankful
I
for the
love about the
experience.
conversations as well. I mean, another reason, I think you asked me this before. Why do I love the conversations so much? I think I appreciate it more even now with all the phones and
Yeah.
devices. And I think we were having coffee, and I said, "Look around us. Like,
Yeah.
how many people are sitting there on their phone,
Yeah,
or how many people are walking outside, walking along on their phone?"
exactly.
So conversations like this kind of slow life down a little bit and
Mm, hmm.
make you think about things a different way.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. So last question. As you think about the wisdom you've gleaned over the years and think about who you have become today, what do you envision for your career going forward?
It's interesting, in my age group, like actually people are starting to talk about how they're gonna retire. That's not in the cards for me.
Yeah.
I don't envision myself retiring, but um, so definitely starting to think about how I want to do that. I can't envision myself retired. So I want to do honestly, I really love what I'm doing. I want to do more of it. I want to get into different groups. Um,
Can I
Short
pause
term,
you
like
there for a quick sec? When you say
yeah.
more, what does is more about scale? Like, what do you mean when you say I want to do more of it?
Um, More of the learning, more of the dealing with different groups. I don't know. I get really interested in, I mentioned that the reason I put that article out in the paper is I saw that the city of Vancouver did a big risk report,
Hmm.
and I thought, well, that's fantastic that they're actually visualizing this. But I thought it's kind of strange. There's nothing from the insurance industry, and we're such a big part of the solution. That excites me as well, just to see gaps in
Hmm.
communication and since digging into this and doing that article, I've had a lot of all kinds of different people reaching out, asking questions about it.
Yeah.
And it's now starting to lead into things like I've got building owners phoning me saying, well, how do I know how strong my building is
Right.
seismically? How do I know
Yeah.
how strong my house is? I'm starting to look into the fact. I mean, again, it's not hard to find. You can see examples all over the world, but um, municipalities have all kinds of projects in the works to mitigate flood, to mitigate
Yeah.
fire. Um, you know, uh, where are those projects at? I mean, you want people to ask those questions.
Hmm.
So I think it's a lot of the big picture stuff I really
Fun.
enjoy getting into and want to get
Yeah.
into.
Well, alerting people, informing people, enabling people
Yeah,
to make decisions that will support a solid foundation and
yeah.
lead and give them access to more aggressive growth or whatever that big picture adventure looks
Yeah,
like for
yeah.
them, right?
I think the quarterback San Francisco 49ers is out. The
Oh,
options
that's
of that
awesome.
they're gone, but
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're still a quarterback, but in a different suit.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, Grant, for those who would like to connect with you and your wisdom and all your curiosity and learning, where might they find you?
They can find me at, I know we mentioned it's Access Insurance Group. My email is grant.alsop at Access Insurance Group.
Great.
Through LinkedIn,
Okay.
through you.
Exactly. Always reach out.
Yeah.
That's perfect. All righty. So LinkedIn, Access Insurance, and I'm sure if you Google Grant Alsop in Vancouver, you'll find him no problem because he's got some presence here in the city. So Grant,
Okay.
thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your story with
Thanks.
us and
Thanks,
inspiring those of
Michelle. That
us.
was fun as always.
Really
Love
appreciate
connecting with
you.
you.
All righty. Talk soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye for now.